Hey, I'm Rutledge.
Hey, I'm Connor.
And we're Friend Stream Sports. We're real friends who talk about real sports in real time. And as usual, we have a really big show. What are we bringing to the table tonight, Connor?
Oh, we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. NCAA Championship or the Natty. We've got some NFL news, not just playoff news, but the off-season stuff is heating up as well, along with some NBA talk. There is some stories that are definitely starting to heat up in the NBA as winter presses on. The NBA keeps us warm all on the insides, Rutledge. So, and speaking of warm on the insides, there's an entire state that is probably still a little warm from all the bourbon that they consumed last night while watching their team be crowned greatest in the land.
They are, yeah, the Alabama team. I'm sure they are so happy with taking another national championship in this year. Out of all the inconsistencies we had in 2020, Alabama winning a championship was a big consistent. I was very, I don't want to say blown away, but they kept saying a phrase during the broadcast, especially in the fourth quarter when the game kind of settled in that Bama was going to win. They kept just talking about the football machine that Nick Saban has made Alabama. And he's just turned it into, Mac Jones was supposed to be an interim quarterback, not supposed to be a big deal. Now that dude's competing for a Heisman, and they won a national championship. They had 2 Heisman finalists and an incredible running back. So Alabama was incredible. I thought it would be a little closer, but I wasn't surprised about that. Connor, what did you think of Ohio State?
For Ohio State, I think that there was some at the very beginning. You were hoping that there'd be a ton of offense, and there really was 76 points scored. But we were hoping for more offense from Ohio State. And one of the things I've been talking about the last couple weeks has been Trey Sermon, his emergence and his ability to really make the Buckeyes, give them that real potent rushing attack. I think was the big piece that got them from potential playoff team to playing for the national championship. Let us not remember in the Big Ten, or let us not forget, in the Big Ten title game, Trey Sermon had 29 carries for 331 yards. Against Clemson, he had 31 carries for 193 yards. And against Alabama, he lasted all of 1 carry for 2 yards. So he went out with a shoulder. Wish him the best. But I think that once that happened offensively, that really hampered Ohio State. And, Master Teague, who is their backup running back, seemed to do some effective things at times. But, you really needed their big dog. You really needed Trey Sermon to come in and cap this thing off for Ohio State. Justin Fields, he couldn't handle the pressure. He was not, just like Josh Allen couldn't handle the pressure there from Pico Sr. and Marcus Peters. So, but that's kind of my quick take on Ohio State, man. They really needed and, probably would have performed better had Trey Sermon been in the game. But if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Yeah. Speaking of Christmas, Rutledge, and Buckeyes and nuts, what did you think about the Buckeyes?
I remember watching the film of them playing Clemson because I watched the highlights again after the game. And they just look so much faster against Clemson. They outran their safeties all the time. Then you put them up against Bama, and they just seemed like, it felt like a CBS 3:30 SEC mainstream game where it's going to be someone taking on Alabama. And we are just all in the backfield today, Connor. By the way, hi there to Steven and Daniel as we play Bills-Ravens this week. But Rutledge goes 4-0. I was saying it shows Alabama is on a big distance. We think people are good, and then they just play Alabama, and they're not as good as we thought they were. They all beat up against each other. Clemson, I think if they would have played Bama, would have looked just as exposed. So I would.
What was that Brian Kelly quote in the press conference after he lost to Alabama? He was like, "Man, everyone's giving me a hard time about losing to Alabama. Everybody loses to Alabama."
Exactly.
What are you so concerned about?
Exactly. So, Ohio State gained some respect points in my eyes of at least their talent and their depth, but with no Sermon on the field, kind of like we talked about with Clemson being a rushing game. With no Sermon, they had to one-dimensional go it, and Fields tried to throw the passes he threw against Clemson a lot, those deep balls that sort of got there. And when you have 5-star waiting to be drafted on Sunday backs playing against, those tricks just don't work like they did against everyone else who doesn't have the loaded depth. So kudos to them. Shout out to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I will say Nick Saban in his post-game conference, I don't think he's going to walk away, but you can tell his attitude towards competing has changed. Just there was something about him afterwards that the emotion hit him. But when he talked in the first, it just seemed like, yep, we won the game, so we're going to go start recruiting next week. And it was just not old hat for him, but he just expects to win a natty every single year. And if he doesn't, he's just not satisfied.
Yep. There was, speaking of Justin Fields versus Mac Jones in terms of throwing the ball, there was an interesting stat that I found. Justin Fields, on his average completions were 5.3 yards down the field, and Mac Jones's average completion was over 10 yards. So each completion that Mac Jones had was over 10 yards, over 10 yards per attempt. So he, really limited the Buckeyes in what they were trying to do. That juke, your guys' ankles are not doing good right now.
They got Buffalo Billed. All right.
That they did. But
so as we wind down the first quarter, Connor, I think it's time for us to share our way too early 2021 top 6. We want to do top 6 because top 4 is the playoff, and who are the 2 on the outside looking in. So let's go through them really quick. At number 1, I have Bama. I have Bama because Bryce Young is supposed to be a stud, and Bama's shown they can reload. They have the number 1 recruiting class coming into the year, and they just are a step above. So I have Bama number 1. Who do you have number 1?
And don't worry, I will have Bama ranked how I feel appropriately, but I am buying the Spencer Rattler hype with those Oklahoma Sooners. Really came on strong at the end of the season, and I think that the story for Oklahoma isn't going to be just Spencer Rattler, but their defense, which ended the season pretty strong. I think starting the season, Oklahoma will be the number 1 ranked team in the country.
Okay. I have Oklahoma at number 2. Also following the hype of Spencer Rattler. They look just so good against Florida, to which Florida was someone that I especially bought into. I thought was good last year, and Oklahoma showed a difference. Who's your number 2?
Number 2 going Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes, and let it be known, when I made these rankings, I thought, what are the coaches poll? What's the AP? What's ESPN? Who are they going to be pushing, right? And I think that they want balance. ESPN doesn't want the SEC to have all of these teams in and crushing everybody. So I think Ohio State, they are going to lose Justin Fields, but they're not losing as much as other teams, and especially Clemson and Alabama. And I think that their September 11th game against Oregon is going to be big time in terms of understanding some real playoff conversations. And I think the Big Ten's still going to be pretty weak. So I've got Ohio State number 2.
Got Ohio State number 2. Okay, number 3. I thought of this the way the playoff committee would think of it. So I actually am keeping some SEC in there with Texas A&M. Their win against North Carolina at the end, and Jimbo Fisher sort of showing off. The playoff committee loves good stories. In college football, we love the narrative. Now, Kellen Mond is gone, or he's going, so they won't have that, but I'm sure Jimbo has someone waiting in the wings, ready to step in. They have a top 10 recruiting class, and I think they're probably circled their first game, and they're just counting down to get started. So Texas A&M number 3.
That would be nice for the Aggies to be 3. I'm going Clemson 3. We usually agree a lot more than what we're agreeing on. Clemson number 3, I think. DJ Uiagalelei, first pick of the game. That is not unexpected.
In the end zone.
Connor trying to be cute here and gets picked off.
Wouldn't be Tuesday at 8 without Connor throwing a pick.
For all of our podcast listeners, Lamar Jackson made a boo-boo. DJ Uiagalelei got a lot of great experience against Notre Dame, and I think that will serve him well. And I think that Clemson's linebacker, Skowski, coming back, being the quarterback of the defense, is going to boost them, along with between recruiting and I believe a few transfer portal folks coming in. Clemson's pass rush should be a little better. So I'm having Clemson Tigers be number 3.
Okay. By the way, Daniel in the comments gave you huge shout out for nailing Uiagalelei. I think that's the first time I tried to say that, so mad props. Number 4, I have Ohio State. While they do have the number two recruiting class right now, they have a lot of quarterback questions, and they came out of the year kind of weak. So I don't think the committee is going to say, hey, you guys are great, and give them the keys to the penthouse and put them as high as you have them, Connor. So I have them in the top 4, but they're going to have to, and part of it's going to become strength of schedule. The Big Ten has some work to do and has to have some good out-of-conference improvements and just has to have a better showing in order for them to get more respect so that their moneymaker can bring to the table. Who do you have number 4?
Number 4, Alabama. For those folks who might be upset with me for not putting them higher, I am still putting Alabama as a playoff team despite the fact that they're losing 3 of the top 5 Heisman finalists. They've got a big early season game against Miami. Should be a lot of fun, although the last time Alabama played a highly ranked team from the state of Florida at the first game of the regular season set Florida State on a trajectory of cellar dweller. So hopefully Alabama doesn't decimate Miami like they did Florida State a couple years ago. But Alabama, number 4, they might not be starting off number 1, but they didn't fall that far for me.
Okay. Now we've got into our 2 on the outside looking in. So for mine, I have Clemson at number 5. I think Uiagalelei has a long way to go. I think the ACC with both Notre Dame and Clemson getting spanked is a big thing. I think the loss of Trevor Lawrence is going to hurt them more than we think it will. So I have Clemson a lot lower. I'm going to take a timeout.
Ooh. Taking a timeout here.
0-0
slugfest.
0-0 defensive slugfest.
To our viewers, would love to hear some of y'all's picks as well and thoughts of how we're right and Rutledge is wrong.
Oh well, let's not have that. But I have Clemson at 5. I think they're still going to be a big deal, but I think they're going to fall down a little bit, and then maybe they'll rise in the rankings. But I think they have a lot to prove. Who do you have at 5?
Number 5, I'm going the Oregon Ducks. I think Oregon, this is back-to-back Pac-12 champs. They have a lot coming back. I think they'll be highly ranked because of an early season game against Ohio State to make sure that is a watched game just with high-ranked teams. So I'm seeing an interception and what's looking like it's going to be a pick 6 here for the Ravens.
Josh Allen goes and throws it totally to the wrong jersey.
But yeah, Oregon at number 5 for me.
Okay. Last number 6, I have the University of North Carolina. I'm going bold here. Sam Howell is going to be back. Mac Brown, remember, this is his 2nd season. With his 1st season, he got them to a bowl game and won. 2nd season, he gets them to do things like blow up Miami and gets them to be kind of a contender in the ACC. I think they're going to be hot. So I have North Carolina.
Number 6, sticking with the ACC, but going with the Miami Hurricanes. They did lack consistency in 2020, but another year under Manny Diaz and another year with De'Aaron King. My understanding is he has declared that he's coming back. I think they're going to be primed to take the next step to challenge Clemson for the ACC. Maybe not totally go the distance there, but by virtue of being in proximity to Clemson, that should get you in proximity to the college football playoff. So Rutledge, and one of the things, don't want to go too totally off script here, but I think we had a 3-way tie for our bowl games.
We did. What is the final results? Where did I finish? Did I tie for all 3 first places?
You were, well, I know you wanted to take the counting over.
Yeah. You protected that document to where I couldn't count it.
So it was myself, Luke, and Steven finished tied for first. So the Alabama win got us all tied for first. So I think we need to do a Zoom show where we're all on keeping it real.
We might do a Zoom show. We might even get it to play a little 2-on-2 Madden. We might do Rutledge and Connor versus Steven and Luke. We'll see. But congratulations to Steven and Luke for winning our first ever bowl pick'em contest here at Friend Stream Sports. Steven is on, and his top 6 are Bama, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Let me finish this play. No! What are you doing? Josh Allen is YOLO throwing, as Daniel called it. Steven has Bama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Texas A&M, and Georgia as his top 6. Ooh. So that's college football offseason. Connor, what do you want to talk about for NFL offseason? Because for some teams, their season is done.
You know, I think that there is a ton of noise going around our favorite team to throw under the bus, a Texas-sized bust, if you will, with those Houston Texans. The story came out last week, another Deshaun Watson tweet about his issues with the front office picking a GM not to his liking. And now all the stories are all about Deshaun Watson forcing a trade. So 2 quick thoughts, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe we could talk about some potential destinations and if we can make this happen. Number one, I think it's Deshaun Watson forcing a trade, although we don't see that as much here in American sports. As a sophisticated soccer fan, we see this a lot. We're seeing this right now with Leo Messi in Barcelona, and I think that being able to force a trade and say I'm not happy. I mean, look, they good RPO there, Rutledge.
That's solid RPO. Thank you.
Solid RPO. I think that Deshaun Watson can very well force a trade. Now, unfortunately, he can't quite pick where he goes, but he sure can. I think the other thing that's important to consider, I know at the very beginning of the season, and we weren't the only show that was doing this, we were giving Bill O'Brien a really hard time, and it looks like it wasn't all Bill O'Brien. The owner and just that front office seemed to be quite discombobulated in the way that they were trying to operate a team.
Yeah, it's a mess over there in Houston. They, besides charging, $25 a drink at the Super Bowl, they are having a tough time. I think Deshaun Watson, he just controls so much money, so he has to be put happy. Some of the big places I saw that he might go could be New England, maybe Washington, or if not, the big one that's getting a lot of talk is him going over to Miami and being a Dolphin and them trading for Tua.
I was going to say, going to Miami. Yeah, going to Miami makes a lot of sense because if you think about it, and you can't. There's folks that make millions of dollars to make decisions that I don't make. But when you trade Nuke Hopkins for a washing machine and 3 jock straps last year, you start to, you don't want to second guess, but there's some questions. I think if the Houston Texans go for that trade, that, they should be looking for a quarterback in return. New England doesn't necessarily have a quarterback to offer in return, but I do think Miami does make a lot of sense. I think that, it wouldn't necessarily be totally out of the ordinary if a Jacksonville or a New York Jets make a deal to make this happen. Get Deshaun Watson something a little more proven, maybe he's playing for Jacksonville next year.
Could be a possibility. For him to play for Jax. What a quick first quarter.
Speaking of Jacksonville, they are also quite in the news.
They are quite in the news here. Jacksonville has their rumors of head coaches. Of course, the big news for Jacksonville could be Urban Meyer, right? Do they go out and draft Trevor Lawrence? Every pre-draft you're reading says they're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. But do they take Trevor Lawrence? Does Urban Meyer come take the job? Do they go after someone else like Brian DeBallo from Buffalo as the offensive coach, in which we'll get into my thoughts on that in a minute. But how do you feel about Jacksonville and all their stories?
For a team as small of a market as Jacksonville to be taking this much news, and the Baltimore Ravens defense standing strong as we end the quarter and in the half and not going for a field goal, I think that, I think the Jags have to be, if they shoot for the stars, which we're going to talk about here for our halftime hot take, shooting for the stars does not mean that they're going to win championships. Shooting for the stars is not going to put them on the moon. I think they have to be really considerate. I think that they have to be they have to think about the staff. They have to think about the fit, right? They have to think about a lot of different things, obviously, with coming in with the head coach. As I've said before, the head coach, I know we like to say that the quarterback is the CEO of a franchise, but it's really the head coach is the CEO of the franchise. The quarterback is the face, but that the head coach has to make so much go. I think that that's a really, they should be, the Jags should be in the news because they have a lot to consider there.
Yeah, I think this is a great time for us to segue into our halftime hot take naturally, Connor, and that is should Urban Meyer, if offered it, take the Jacksonville Jaguars job? I my take on Urban Meyer right now is I don't think that that's a good work environment for him. What was the obvious of Urban Meyer's stress? He put it out there of his kids, he put it out there of everything else going on, the pressure of Florida winning a championship, but on the surface, Tim Tebow and some power recruits went away, and and there it is, to quote Jurassic Park. It just didn't sort of lock in for him. So I don't think Myers should take that, even though Ron Zook and Charlie Strong gave him a mediocre Florida program. He had something to build off of. And to your point, the head coach, especially in an NFL position, is very much the CEO. They very much put together the structure. And Urban Meyer's brand of who he is and what he does, kind of like Nick Saban's brand, I don't see it lining up well with well-paid NFL players to motivate them. He does a great job of motivating 18 to 22-year-olds and then also developing younger coaches. Look at how great Ryan Day has continued that program based off of the structure he told him how to build. So I don't think that would be a good fit for Meyer, and I actually don't see him taking it at all. What about you?
I heard an interest. You talking about college coaches transitioning into the NFL. Uh, Spoke with, or I heard a story once about Nick Saban when he was coaching the Miami Dolphins, and he made the huge deal about the fact that Jason Taylor's shoes were untied. And Jason Taylor had already established himself as one of the top defensive ends in the game, and brother of Joy Taylor, co-host with Colin Cowherd. Uh, Heard with Colin Cowherd, please sponsor our show. We'll give you many shout outs.
Please adopt
Uh,
us.
Please adopt us, uncle. Please be our uncle, Colin. We will refill your bar cart all the time. Um, but the idea was that Nick Saban, he was such a strict disciplinarian kind of guy, and Jason Taylor was like, dude, I'm an all-pro D end. If I don't tie my shoes right now, that's going to be okay. And I think that Urban Meyer could very well have some of those types of issues where he is used to, being the most important guy, not just in terms of being the CEO that has to, when you're a CEO in terms of an NFL head coach, you have to make personalities go that you don't have the authority over. Where in college, Urban Meyer had the authority over his players and his team and his staff. So I could see there being issues there. I could see Urban Meyer. He's paid a lot of money by Fox to sit and call games, and his health is set, and he's got his second home in Sarasota. And you know, I don't think it would work out for him if he went down there. But ultimately, I do think he is going to take that job. But I don't think it's going to work out for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. Steven also says that if Urban wants to stick around the game, he needs to suit up and join ESPN. That's a hot take. He can't keep
Ooh.
doing this. Uh, I won't think they won't work. If he does, he'll end up ruining a programmer himself. No, Steven said he retracts the statement. No, you said what you said, Steven. Fox is subpar in Steven's eyes out there. So,
Well,
uh,
that's a hot take,
that is
and
the
that's a wrong
hottest.
take.
That's a hottest halftime hot take. And this has been us here doing Halftime Hot Takes, Friends Stream Sports, Tuesday, 8 o'clock on Twitch. If you miss our show live, make sure to follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast. Um, We love to have you come out and interact live with us. We also do a lot of events. We're getting ready to count down to, we are a month away from the Daytona 500, Connor, which means fantasy NASCAR.
One of the ways, Rutledge, that we're going to be having all of our listeners be interacting with us is play some fantasy NASCAR with folks throughout the season. Get your chance to be around race cars or watch race cars go 200 miles an hour. Stay tuned for more fantasy NASCAR news, but that should be a fun thing to do here this spring and summer.
And summer. And a little fall. But for now, let's jump back into it right now. It's NFL playoff season. It is the young guns of the AFC with all these young quarterbacks versus the old guard of the classic NFC quarterbacks and the Rams all wrapped together. So which game do you want to talk about first, Connor?
Rutledge, let's go Browns Chiefs. I think we're talking about upcoming NFL matchups. That one was so stinking surprising.
That one was. I remember pulling up the score, and when I saw 24-0 Browns, I said, "Oh my, what is happening?"
It's so interesting, right? When the Browns played the Steelers, hey, there's a reason why if you pick the favorites, eventually the favorite's going to lose. But I think that, the Browns were just hungrier. The Browns were ready to roll. I think the Steelers came out flat, didn't help them, but with the center sailing a ball over Big Ben's head right there at the very beginning. I've done that before playing center. That's no fun. But then, we have a issue of the hot team who's not necessarily the winning team or better team, quote unquote, per the records, playing the better team that isn't necessarily the hot team. What do you think about this upcoming matchup against the Chiefs?
It kind of feels like a by the way, Daniel called you out of how does that type of snap happen as you as a center, but or you as a center in general. It kind of feels like the 1995 NBA Finals as best documented in this magic moment for the Orlando Magic when they played the Houston Rockets and they beat the Bulls and then they came in just way too excited. And it kind of has that type of feeling that Stefanski is back, their other COVID protocol people are back, but I think after reading the Browns' Twitter and everyone's tweets after beating the Steelers, it was a lot of no one thought we could do it and we did it, and it's not just all right, we won, on to the next one feel. It's like we won a playoff game and we beat our division rival. We are a big deal feel. Oh, that's a missed tackle.
And a missed truck stick.
And just a missed touchdown. Baltimore Ravens 14-0.
That was not a missed touchdown.
No. Well, I mean, I scored one of the touchdowns. Josh Allen threw one of the touchdowns. So
Josh Allen was responsible for a touchdown. That's true.
So as that goes, but then again, the Chiefs aren't impenetrable. Their last double-digit win was Week 8 against the Jets, and they have kind of a lackluster pass protection. And the Browns, like you say, Connor, they fly to the ball. Like and Myles Garrett is in just such a good zone. So I am mixed feelings. On paper, if I was a betting man, I would put money on the Chiefs because the sports bookie guy would probably look at me sideways if I did not. But I'm torn. Where are you lying on this one?
I think that our viewers and fans are going to have to wait for picks. But, it's the thing about a playoff is it's not always the best team that wins. It's the team that's hottest that wins. So Browns are definitely hot right now. Can't deny that.
They are hot right now. All right, next game we have this one is Bills-Ravens, and with Bills-Ravens coming, what's your take on Bills-Ravens?
Well, first, big ups to Lamar Jackson. Got the big old monkey off of his back with that win against Tennessee. I think that big game for just his psyche, that overall getting that off your back. When I played at Wheaton, there was a team that whenever we'd go to Elmhurst, which I know it's supposed to be a family show, but for any Wheaton Thunder people out there, screw Elmhurst. I'm gonna say that's okay to say that. But we are. It was we always had this funk against Elmhurst, and in the same way, it seemed like Lamar Jackson always, had just struggled there getting into the playoffs. So I think he's going to play much freer now that he's finally won a game. I think the Bills played a red-hot Indianapolis Colts team and had to overcome a lot. So I think, we're starting to get to the point where a lot of teams are doing a lot of things well, and would love to hear your thoughts.
It's really got to be on the shoulders of Josh Allen, and if he plays like I do, he's got a lot of work to do. They did not have a lot in the run game last week, but it's going to come into how do they react. The Ravens love to blitz, and they love to bring a lot of pressure to the field. So will that end up leaving like Stephon Diggs totally exposed, and then Josh Allen can just throw bombs? So it's going to be, how does the coaching staffs kind of handle it, and how does Allen play in probably one of the biggest games in his career in the biggest season so far? And do the Bills over-prepare for Lamar Jackson? Because he can be kind of an X factor. The X factor of him has slowed down a little compared to the pocket just, wow, that was like a paper bag. The X factor has slowed down a little for him, in my opinion. He's starting to settle more into be just a quarterback, which is fine. But how does it sort of react? So I think it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited about it.
Speaking of reaction, we got to see how fast Jared Goff's thumb is reacting to whatever kind of treatment that he's putting on it, because good grief, maybe I've got some eligibility to play quarterback for the Rams. They don't have too many of those guys left.
No, they don't. And who's going to, that's the big question mark. Plus is Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and Edwards. Are they all going to come out? Aaron Donald's supposed to play, but this is what playoffs are made for. It's a wild defense versus Aaron Rodgers. Connor, you have a shot here to take your overrated Packers pick and make it true.
Slant
first never fails.
Slant never fails. And I was in my slant beater defense.
I noticed that you programmed that in a lot now.
I was in the old slant beater, but I think that one of the issues, especially with the Rams playing the Packers in Green Bay, right? It's the home field advantage isn't the fans, but it's that it's in Green Bay in January. Packers are very used to that, and the Rams have been in sunny Southern California all year. I think that's going to be a real problem, and I think that is, we're talking about overcoming things to advance in the playoffs. That's going to be tough to overcome. Aaron Donald, if he doesn't play, I would be so shocked. Everybody's got injuries right now. It's just, how bad is your injury right now? So I'd be very surprised if Aaron Donald doesn't play. But old man Rodgers is still slinging it, and he's still moving around. So that will be a very interesting game. But speaking of old men, the last game that we're talking about has two of them.
Oh man, this is the old men guard. It's Drew Brees' receding hairline versus Tom Brady's extremely youthful diet. Plus, he probably drives to St. Augustine to drink out of the fountain of youth, which is probably why he signed with Tampa Bay to begin with. But my big storyline here is Michael Thomas is back, and the Saints have the fourth leading defense in the league. So while the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have started to adapt to using Tom Brady in the way that he's accustomed to playing, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think that the defense for the Saints is going to be a lot of things for Brady to deal with, and he does not like getting hit.
He does not like getting hit. That is so true. But he does like throwing the ball to Antonio Brown, which is happening more and more. There is going to be no Mike Evans, and I think that this is now the third time that they're playing this, and this is not a rubber match. It is so hard to beat a team twice in a year and dial that up exponentially to beat a team for a third time in a year. I know Mike Evans is hurt. We'll see if he plays, but there's. I think the Bucs could very well be peaking at the right time here against the Saints, but the Saints are gonna. Saints are the higher seed and have played the way that they've been playing for a reason. So we will, as our picks come at the end of the game, we'll be able to share our thoughts more so.
Yeah, definitely. Connor, I actually have some questions. We're going to go off book here for you. Daniel and Steven have questions directed towards you. Daniel wants to know what is the coldest game you've ever played in, and Steven wants to talk about is the weather really a factor, like as a player? He says I wouldn't think it would be a factor, especially for an athlete like a professional athlete. So you're from Indiana. You played in Illinois. Talk about cold weather games. Take 30 seconds.
Cold weather games, well, playing center, one of the things that I would have to do at the beginning of practice when it was cold weather out, I would literally, I would literally take my hand and punch the football just to get feeling back in my hands. There are heaters there for sure. I think the other thing is, man, when it's hot out, you just stay loose longer, right? Your body literally will cool down when it's cold out. Now in the NFL, you've got all you're not just your parkas, but all your stuff to kind of help with that. But I think that's a piece. The other thing is, and good pass there by Lamar Jackson, and good,
Oh,
not a mistimed truck stick there by Mark Ingram. I think mentally, right, there is something to it. Stories of guys coming out in sleeves versus not coming out in sleeves. It's kind of like rain games, right? For athletes that might have played in rain games where it's hard. There are some guys who just still have a hard time with the elements, along with just trajectories of footballs. So there are a lot of things, if you're not used to playing in the cold, can be problematic. So that, and then the coldest game that I ever played in, I would say that Daniel actually got to watch me play a snow game against oh gosh, who did we play? Franklin College in Indianapolis. That was a ton of fun. But 2 weeks prior in the playoffs, we played Trine University, and I remember that game being insanely cold. And it wasn't snowy. It was just cold and not fun. So, those are my thoughts on the cold weather. I think that if you're not ready for it, it definitely makes an impact. The LA Rams, they're going to do what they can, but you've been playing in Southern California all season. Your body is not used to can have issues with the cold.
I think with all that being said, what do you think about how it'll be for Jared Goff and his thumb and putting that out there in really cold Wisconsin?
Man, maybe he can get some spotted cow in him in his water bottle, so he can lose some feeling just in general. If he gets, man, you hit your fingers in the cold or your hands, and your hands are healthy, that's no good either. So there's some, Mr. Goff and his thumb is going to, if he's playing, he's going to be I bet he's going to be very careful about how he proceeds.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that, Connor. That was great questions in the comments. Remember, we're here to interact with you. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to change sports. We're going to talk about the NBA, and we're going to go through some quick takes as we close the show here on teams that have players out and what is happening to them. So the 76ers, with their brand new coach, Doc runs. Okay. The 76ers have 8 players out, and they've asked Doc Rivers. Now, one question I loved about this is he got asked in a press conference, what would you do if you could have like a bigger roster, if you could have 40 people? He said, well, when it's your best players that are hurt, it doesn't really matter. It hit him in the head, and he didn't even catch it.
Huh.
What is your take with the Sixers? They lost to the Hawks this week.
Yeah, first off, the Sixers have lost 3 in a row. I loved another question Doc Rivers had in another interview where he was talking about Dwight Howard playing point guard. So Doc Rivers might have a nickname of Salty Doc because he, between some of his Paul George takes and some things this season, he is definitely a little on the salty side. I think that this is going to be a real season-defining stretch here. Currently at 7-4, they've lost 3 in a row. Their next 6, they've got the Heat twice, Memphis, Oklahoma City, and Boston twice. Who let's not forget Boston just had their game with the Magic postponed. So this stretch could be 2-4 for the Sixers. Without their best players, it's 3-3 would be a pretty good achievement for this stretch with some of these guys that are out. And I think because the Sixers are in win now mode, we're going to talk about another team that's not necessarily in win now mode, but that's going to be a real issue moving forward for the Sixers.
It'll be really big to kind of watch that. I'm excited for that Heat game because a lot of players for the Heat are on protocol right now, including Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. So that'll be interesting. I pulled one stat that was interesting. The Sixers in their struggles, when they lost to the Hawks, everyone that's not Isaiah Joe went from 4 for 29 behind the arc, and the points scored against them were 69-32 in the mid 2 quarters in their Hawks loss. So they're more, I think, a story of how basketball is this year. Someone that has a normal injury story is the Warriors and Klay Thompson. How do you feel about the Warriors, Connor?
Yeah, so the Warriors are not necessarily, they would have been in win now mode had Klay Thompson been able to play this year. But, I think that the biggest issue is team cohesion going into that 2022 season. Right now, the Warriors in the West would have to have a lot of breaks to maybe hit an 8 seed kind of situation. They've got some players with Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Oubre, James Wiseman has been doing all right, along with, Mr. Steph Curry, the guy who can, hit a three-pointer from Orlando while shooting that three-pointer towards the Chase Center across the country. So, for a team that has those, the team's going to be built around Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And that front office, I'm sure, really wants to be able to see how do some of these lesser pieces work with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on the court at the same time. So I think that's the biggest issue there for the Warriors moving forward.
Kudos to Kerr, though, that he's really trying to push the defensive envelope with Wiggins and Green. Anytime they have it, though, if Curry scores more than 30 points, they are 5-0, so they're not as down and out as they were last year. I think they're just sort of evolving their brand and changing who they are. So I think they're going in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, this year I kind of peg them as a fringe playoff team.
Yeah,
they might be the
8.
number 9, they might be the 8, but whereas last year, it was kind of like, all right, who's healthy to suit up?
Where do you have the Nets right now?
The Nets currently are, I'm about as lost on the Nets as Kyrie Irving is, just wherever he is. But no, I've got the Nets are currently sitting in the East as the number 9 seed. Not just Kyrie Irving, but Kevin Durant has been out. I think that they've performed as well as you'd expect the Nets to perform with those 2 players out. But, the biggest piece, right? We don't know where Kyrie is and what he's up to. And what does that mean? That means Rutledge is going to make this interesting with a touchdown.
Touchdown with under 2 minutes to go. Let's go.
Let's go.
There's like a Bills song, like a Bills version of the Twist.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it plays, but we're not going to hear it today. But you keep going. I'm sorry.
That's funny. Brooklyn. So without Kyrie, the Nets are missing 27 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. This team could very well be kind of what the Clippers were last year, with a ton of hype, 2 big-time stars that didn't play much together, that don't put it together towards, in the offseason, or towards the postseason, I should say. Would love to hear some of your thoughts, Rutledge, but, this team could be, which should have been a top Eastern Conference team, will now be, a lower Eastern Conference team and have to go on the road for some playoff series, assuming that Kyrie still kind of decides to not be around.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know what's happening with Steve Nash and company. Even though Kevin Durant came back, They lost 120. They lost 129 to 16. They're 5-6. I think there was a lot of preseason hype about these two playing together, and they're just not gelling. And any sports team is put together by a front office that wants a successful unit. And Kyrie and KD have to be together in order to be a successful unit. Both of those guys have shown that in order to be a bigger deal, they need to be on the same. They need to have pieces around them that work. Well, they're the two pieces. So without Kyrie, it's been kind of flat, and I think they're not in the playoffs right now. If the playoffs were to start today, sitting at an 8 seed, not even sitting at an 8 seed. So they have to roll their sleeves up and do some work through the stretch in order to kind of get this narrative about them to change. But like you said, Kyrie, we hope you're okay out there. We know you got some stuff going on and some other things, and we'll see what the league says. But no one in the organization is commenting. Not KD, not Steve Nash. When they ask, they just kind of brush it off. So that's, to me, that's not the best sign.
No. And let's see if this is a good sign for the Ravens. I think it is, because I think the game is in the middle of the field.
Almost a pick.
Almost a pick. So finally, another team that I think that we're going to be really excited, and some of our viewers are going to be excited for us to talk about, the Orlando Magic. But they're on our segment for all the wrong reasons, Rutledge.
Nothing magical going on in Orlando. Orlando had Fultz, which tore his ACL. He's out for the season. Isaac is hurt. Fournier is hurt. They were 4-0. Now they're 6-5. But they've been doing a lot of off-season work in order to try to rebound. So for those of you, like Steven said, he's not the biggest basketball fan. In the NBA, since your roster is smaller, if you have a player go down, you can apply for a disabled player exception. So they've already received one at $3.6 million, and they've already received another one at $6.1 million. Here's the trick where the Magic are stuck. Even though you get that money, you do not get room on your roster to sign players. You have to cut somebody. Also in the NBA, there's an item called the luxury tax. Is that a face mask? That was
a face mask.
It's a poor time face mask there, Matt Milano. There's the luxury tax in the NBA, which is basically if you surpass a certain threshold of money, you have to pay $1 for every dollar that you are over that threshold. The Magic are $2.8 million away from hitting that number. So on top of all of that, Cole Anthony, who is their rookie, has had to be thrusted in with no rookie development. The NBA gets, is that another face mask? By the same guy.
Oh no.
What is happening? Why am I pulling a Buffalo? This is a 30 for 30. This is happening when, who was it in the finals that choked Connor with the free throws that you were at? I can't remember.
Nick Anderson.
We're doing a Nick Anderson right in front of our eyes. We talk about the Magic.
And a Courtney Lee. Let's see. There's Jameer Nelson. Well, there's been a lot of Magic choking in the NBA Finals, for sure.
So after two face masks, Connor waltzes. Is that another face mask? That's another. What is happening? How does Mark Ingram have a head right now?
It might have just been hands on the face.
So back into the Magic take. Outside of that, Cole Anthony did not get his time in the summer league, so the college game and NBA basketball are a little bit more different. So he's having to learn a lot. So they look so good coming into this year, and then it's all kind of rough. So what is your take in the Magic with all that going on, Connor?
Yeah, Kendrick Perkins had, he came out and said, I was wrong on the Magic, when they had that nice hot start. Let's not forget either. Jonathan Isaac has a torn ACL, which I think it's interesting. And when I was a high school football coach, one of the strength coach who I worked with would always point out when players from the same team would have similar injuries. So there was a stretch where the Oklahoma Sooners, between Blake Griffin and Sam Bradford, they had torn ACLs, right? So it's interesting There might be something going on with the Orlando Magic training staff, but you mentioned, right, Jonathan Isaac out, Markelle Fultz out, Evan Fournier out. Aaron Gordon has been hampered with a hamstring injury. So they have some issues that they're having to work through. And unfortunately, as much as I love players whose names are breakfast meats, like Dwayne Bacon, I think that he's going. You can't rely on Nick Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, Dwayne Bacon, and Cole Anthony to get you where you need to go. You just can't. And I think that there's got to be a large. And that's a large touchdown.
That's a large nail in the coffin.
Even larger than that touchdown, you have to have a large expectation shift for the Orlando Magic as we head into the rest of this season.
I think it will all shake off on what other players and teams can come out and play and who gets some time out on the floor, based on whatever's happening with the Magic. But I'm interested to see who they sign and they squeeze in. And it's not French Stream Sports without a missed field, without a missed PAT. There's been so many classics tonight.
A lot of classics.
Missed PAT. It's a classic. This is a classic game. It's a classic night here, Tuesday at 8 o'clock. While we have it, the Magic are still sitting 5th in the East, though. So while it does seem like all doom and gloom for them, they are not all the way down and out, because, at a 6-5 record, they're still kind of hanging in there. Now, Boston leads the East with 7-3, and Milwaukee leads it with 7-4. So we'll have to see how, as we talked about their schedule, how that goes down the stretch and who they bring in to replace. What do they do with all this exception money that they just had the league pick up? And do they pay the luxury tax? But a good point on an article I read today is they're not a true championship contender, that they wouldn't make a deep enough run in the playoffs to merit that financial issue to then deal with picking up that fee. So Connor, if you were front office for the Magic, where's your head at right now?
I think you never want players injured. But I think that the good news about this season is that you're going to have a lot of other teams with COVID issues as well. The general manager staff for the Magic are used to making moves. I think that this fan base, it's not that they're mad, right? But it's just Orlando hasn't been relevant, right? And I think that that's what the fan base wants for the Magic, is to just be relevant. So. If the Magic are still hanging in there, I could definitely see them making a trade deadline move. I could definitely see them trying to shake some stuff up to bring somebody in, to not just be a 5-game series for the number 1 seed in the East. 2 years in a row. Let's remember, 2 years in a row, the Magic have taken game 1 from the number 1 seed as the 8th seed and then lost the next 4. So. To be able to make a little bit more noise in the playoffs is definitely something that the Magic should be looking forward to, because, and you never know how guys are going to be once they get back from injury, but it stands to reason. Jonathan Isaac is young enough to recover. Markelle Fultz still young enough to recover. A lot of your core pieces are still going to be young enough and able enough to recover, and an ACL is not what it used to be.
Yeah, no, people come back from injuries all the time. We can always, my favorite injury, obviously there's Alex Smith coming back from his injury, which was huge this year. But remember, what was it, 10 years ago when Adrian Peterson got hurt at running back, came back, was comeback player of the year at a very physical position. So you're right, it's not the detriment that it used to be. As we spike the ball here, 27-14. We're going for just one last play to see what's going to kind of happen.
I appreciate that you play till the end of the game.
You play to win the game. You play to win the game, Buffalo Bills. I'm excited for this matchup. This has been without a pick and some other blown touchdowns, this has been a good one. I am not Aaron Rodgers. Oh, and that's a pick.
YOLO, to quote Gold Star friend of the show Daniel Mogg, that was a YOLO throw.
That was the Josh Allen YOLO throw to Nako. Okay, Rutledge throws his other pick, closes out the game. Big show, a lot of conversation. You play to win the game. So Connor, get to picks. We're picking all the NFL playoff games for the weekend. We have Browns versus Chiefs. Who do you have?
I'm closing my eyes, holding my nose, looking the other way, and saying Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Upset. Heard it here first.
I felt that. I am also... I feel like I'm standing looking at like a Philly cheesesteak next to a pizza. Both I want both. You know, or a cheeseburger next to fried chicken, and I don't know what to take, and I can only have one. And I'm just gonna have to go with the steady here. I'm gonna have to take the Chiefs. It's a tough call. This is gonna be a nail biter, I think. So Kiki says it best. Steven says Hart wants to take the Browns, but I have to go with the Chiefs. All right, next game. This game right here, Ravens Bills. Who do you have?
Picking the Ravens. I love the way the Ravens run the football. This is a Hart pick for sure. But as I mentioned earlier, getting your first playoff win and coming from behind to do it is going to lift Lamar Jackson big time, just emotionally.
I'm going with the Bills with a huge season, been a huge team, have the right pieces. I think Josh Allen plays better than I do. So I am taking Buffalo in this one for a big game.
Wow, two different picks so far. Let's see about our NFC picks. Rutledge, Rams, Packers. Who are you taking?
I'm sticking with the Packers. While the Rams shut down the Seahawks, the Packers have more of a solid pass offense. You know, the Seattle offense, which they also just got rid of their offensive coordinator today. Seattle and Pete Carroll's offensive philosophy is not supposed to be that long, deep routes with all throwing plays. That's very much what the Packers do, and the Rams put everything they have to stop that on film last week. So the Packers have all the tools they need to beat them. Plus, like you said, it's going to be cold, plus all the questions at quarterback. So I'm going Pack Go.
Packers are going to continue to bust. My pick is Packers being the bust. Packers will host the NFC Championship game.
Okay.
After they beat the Rams.
There you go. Steven's taking the Bills. He's also taking the Packers. Daniel, if you're out there, we'd love your picks. Last game, Saints-Bucks, old man's club, getting together. I am going New Orleans Saints. I think they've played them 3 times. Sean Payton will figure out how to beat them. Michael Thomas is healthy. Drew Brees is doing okay. They have the good defense. All of Brady's kind of big losses that he had were when the defense consistently pounded him. So I'm going the Saints.
The Bucks have been, the theme of my picks are that I'm picking the teams that are getting hot right now. Bucks have been getting hot. They've been playing well. AB's getting it on. Tampa Bay is going to sail into New Orleans and sail out with that dub. So we've got a lot of different picks next week, Rutledge. We need to make sure to note and to see how we did against each other.
We do. We have to bring that up next show. We'll start the next show with our picks. We are very split. Once again, congratulations to Steven and Luke for winning our bowl picking contest. We have big things coming for you in the future. Until then, that is our show for the evening. We have been Friend Stream Sports. This has been 8 o'clock Eastern live on Twitch. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow our podcast. But for now, I'm Rutledge.
And I'm Connor.
Have a great night.